My name is Christian Baker. I'll be your moderator today. And today's topic will be trading print for profitability. Today we have three presenters. We have Mark Klein, our professional services manager, Michael Young, our strategic sales executive, and joining us, Jill Skelly, the rose between two thorns, senior business improvement specialist. She'll be adding some great value today. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Mike. Mike, please take it away.
Thank you, Christian. Before we really get started talking about how we're going to trade print for profitability, it's really important that we kind of take a dive into where most organizations really lie. And the first bullet point should definitely kind of grab all of us, and that's the fact that most printer fleets represent the largest unmanaged expense for an organization. Now, how does that happen? Well, right off the bat, 90% of organizations don't even track their print usage or even know how many printers they have. And when you look at that, and then you understand that, print on average is the third highest controllable cost for an organization, you can see how quickly and how costly that can be for a company. Now, what type of impact can poor print management have on your organization? Well, imagine this, organizations can actually spend up to 3% of their annual revenue on print alone. And, that mismanagement of print can really yield 20 to 30% higher spend in that area. Now, everything that I've shared thus far has really been hard cost, but even soft cost, can have an impact. And one of those is, up to 40% of IT calls can be printer related. So, now that I've outlined, the economical impact of a mismanaged fleet, it's time to get started talking about how to solve that. So to kick us off, I'd like to send it over to Mark.
Cool. Thanks, Mike. Hey, everyone out there, I certainly missed everyone over the last 2 weeks, so I'm glad to be back. And thank you all for joining. So, really, in order to maximize efficiency and minimize wasteful spending, it takes a combination of different solutions. And for most organizations, aligning their needs with the proper hardware and print management software, it really will do the trick. So, I know you see the slide and it talks about hardware, software, managed print services. Today, we're just going to focus on the hardware and the software. If you're interested in the managed print services piece, we're going to have a follow-up session and we'll be discussing that in greater detail. So we're going to kick it off really with the hardware, and we are lucky, like Christian said, to have Jill Skelly here with us today. She is one of our senior business improvement specialists here at Cobb Technologies. She brings over a decade and a half, I think it's 16 or 17 years of industry experience, and she has a really nice perspective, very valuable perspective on where the industry is headed. And so thank you. Without further ado, Jill, I want you to kick it off with the, just discussing the needs and the process to align organizations with the proper hardware. So go ahead, Jill.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me today. I think when we start with hardware, we think about companies that maybe they turn a blind eye to the printers that live on people's desks. I mean, how many times do you walk through an office and everybody's got a printer? So we really approach this, methodically, and how hardware can help maximize and optimize your print environment. And first, what we do is, in order to analyze your printing needs, whether it's by person, by department, or as an organization, we look at all of your printer models, your copiers, your printers, the desktops, and then that trickles down to what supplies do you have in the supply closet? How much room is that taking up? How much time is it taking to manage? And through all of that, we take this inventory of the printing devices. We look at your floor plan and your layout, and does it make sense where printing devices live in your organization? Do they belong in everybody's desk? Maybe they do. That's great. Can we identify any document workflows as we're doing this? And next, like, what features and functionalities do you need in order to do your job? Because that's important too. So then, we might narrow our focus on your local printers. And we have up on the slide, we're going to reduce local printers, but maybe we will, maybe we won't. By local printers, we mean only connected to your computer and not to your network. Mike, on the call, likes to call them burners. We generally refer to them as disposable. You know that the cheaper printers you get at the office supply store. Maybe they came free with a computer. I don't know. After that, we start to get an idea on how can we streamline printer placements based on the function and needs of a person or a department. Someone in AP probably needs something more than somebody in sales. I can't believe I just admitted that. Once we get to this point, we can generally identify printers, generally saying, we see printers that can be consolidated or replaced. And I know that sounds crazy too, that a copier dealer or your copier rep might recommend we get rid of printers. That's crazy. Crazy talk today. So where does this get us in the end? Hopefully it's an opportunity to gain some print budget predictability after we've analyzed and identified all of these printing trends with the use of some tracking software.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. For those of you out there wondering why I call them burners, just think about how many of those desktop units you go through or how many times you have to replace those cartridges. It really comes down to, you're burning through equipment as well as you're burning through profits in most cases. To kind of help define that a little further, Jill, can you kind of dive into like the difference between the cost of an inkjet cartridge and a toner based?
Oh, I mean, the cost it can be astronomical. It can be, there's a huge variance, generally speaking, an ink-based cartridge can cost you anywhere from 5 cents for black and white up to 20 cents for black and white. And then when you start looking at colors, you're looking at, 15 to 40 cents for color per page. If we stabilize this on toner-based products, we can really stabilize the budget on a number closer to a penny a page or 7 cents for color. So even right there, I'm not a mathematician, I sell copiers for a living. You're looking at 5 cents down to 1 cent for black and white. I mean, that's real money.
Yeah, by percentage, that's enormous. And the one thing is, on average, each employee you have prints about 10,000 pages a year. So you really start to add that up. It's pretty significant, But, the hardware alone can only control the cost so much, So, I'd like to kind of move on to the software piece that kind of takes it to the next level and what that looks like. So when we look at software, there's really 3 primary roles for an effective output solution, and that's really the ability to monitor, manage, and automate. And when you look at monitor, it really all starts with authentication. When someone walks up to the unit, can it tell who's there, what they're doing? And then it gives you the ability to track and report. And Mark's going to dive into that a little bit deeper here in a minute. But once you have, those metrics, that information to manage, there's really 2 different directions that we can go with that. The first is going to be soft management, which is more behavioral. And then there's the automation piece, or what we like to call hard management. So to kind of dive into each of these individually, I'm going to send it over to Mark so he can talk about the monitoring piece.
Sure. Thanks again, Mike. So just to go back a couple of slides, I was looking in a consumer report the other day, and it did mention that the cost of an ounce of ink, toner ink, right, is $75. That equates to about $10,000 per gallon. I don't know. I found that kind of astonishing. So anyway, not to digress, but we're going to talk a little bit about monitoring and the advantages of what that brings to the table. So what we can do from a user standpoint, or from a group standpoint, or from a job role or business role, we can really get an understanding of output. With a software platform that really turns into Big Brother watching, we can get all these types of reports. We can automate reports, but through authentication as well. Just like if you walk up to your workstation, you log in, and whether that's logging into Windows or G Suite or leveraging Azure AD, we can capture who, right? So we capture the username, and then we can start tracking really at a granular level and get an understanding of who is the heavy print users, who are the folks printing color, who's doing more black and white. Maybe they're doing a good job with their printing. But really what we can do is start coaching and understanding budgets, and really get a handle on the entire enterprise from a output perspective. I mentioned authentication a little bit, and the reason why I wanted to bring that up as well was we do a lot of secure print type of technologies as well. And in this day and age, it's nice to talk about contactless or touchless type of output. And so whether we're using like a key fob or a proximity card or even a mag stripe card, after a user prints, we can add that extra layer of contactlessness. I know that was a mouthful, but we can add that layer, and a user doesn't even have to touch an output device, doesn't have to touch a copier or a printer, it really just touches the paper. And we can do that in a secure fashion as well. So, monitoring is important for the fact that now we can start going into the management piece, but in order to do that, we really need to know the numbers. So go ahead, Mike, and we can start discussing, I guess, the management side of it.
Yeah, and once, the first step is having that data, but what we do with that data, that's really the important piece. So, the one thing that we know in any organization or as human beings is change is hard, right? Second you institute change anywhere, people tend to freeze up and resist a little bit. So we like to really start with the soft management part, which, it isn't going to really shake up your employees' worlds as much. Just makes it easier on them. So once we have that tracking and reporting, we can institute things like pop-up windows, right? Where, somebody goes to print something, and let's say it's a 30-page document or, a presentation, and they need to print 20 of them. Something on the screen will pop up and say, hey, you're about to print this on a device that isn't the most cost effective, and it will give them an opportunity to redirect that job. That's a great place to start. Some of the other areas, once you have that information, if you have a department head who has to oversee, say, 8 people that are in the same position, and 7 of the 8 tend to be in alignment with what they're printing, but one of them is kind of, outside those bounds, they're printing double or triple. Not to say that there isn't a reason for that, but when you see that, it gives you an opportunity to have that conversation so that you can kind of move on from that and say, all right, why are you printing so much? Is there any way we can minimize this? Or they may have a really good reason for doing that. And that's really the soft management piece. Now, as we move away from kind of that behavioral management, then we start to leverage the software on ways where we can force behaviors. So Mark, why don't you kind of give us a little background on what that looks like?
Sure. So, Mike talked about soft management. I like to call it the feather. I'm going to talk about hard management. I like to call that the hammer. So with the pop-ups that Mike referenced, that's great for, trying to modify behaviors. We're not forcing anyone to do anything. We're leaving it up to the knowledge workers to make a good decision, right? So if we find that the workers are not making those decisions, and we need to force print jobs to do certain things so we can save money and make our organization more cost effective, we can certainly do this hard management. And what I mean by that is setting up print rules, setting up output rules. Maybe we're not allowing a whole group of folks, maybe they're a particular role, not letting them print color at all. So, they're only forced to print black and white. Another rule could be if a print job is 500 pages and a user tries to print it to their burner, their local attached printer, we can force that print job to be printed on the most cost-effective device or devices. Beyond the 500 pages, maybe we want to force a rule that says we want those documents to also be double-sided, and we force that. A couple other popular things we see out there are emails. Emails are always, sent and received in color, but most people print them in color as well. So we can define recipes for success. I also like to call them that. We can define recipes that say all emails in our organization are now going to be printed in black and white. So, doing these very simple strategy type of rules really drives us to save money and puts money, right back into the bottom line. So, we talked about software, and I think, Mike, you want to go ahead and summarize that piece?
Yeah, definitely. So, just to kind of reinforce some of the things Mark said, going from black and white to color, or color to black and white, I mean, the cost can be 7 times for color. Think about how many times that happens. The average 20-pound sheet of paper, standard size will run you half a cent a piece. 10,000 pages a year per employee, that adds up pretty quick. So, we've really dove into, the hardware and the software today, and at a later date, we're going to dive into the managed print services. But everything we have talked about up to this point has really been conceptual, right? But what better way to convey the impact of a solution like this than to have Jill share an example. So Jill, can you walk us through one of your more memorable cases?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I'm really glad you asked that question. One of my favorite stories to tell when it comes to this is I had a customer a couple of years ago. We were doing an account review, and we were just walking through their office, and I don't know if I've just never noticed the printers before or what, but I asked, like, why does everybody have all these printers on their desk? And we kept walking through, and it seemed like more and more, and we eventually looked at doing a print study with them where we determined that they had 92 networked and local printers, so not including their copiers, 92 printers. And of those 92 printers, 29 of them were unique printer models. So what does that mean? That means that IT's managing 29 separate print drivers. Someone's managing 29 different sets of office supplies and parts, not to mention parts because they're never under a contract. And that the average age of those printers was 7 years old. So, they were just as, I don't think they even realized that they had that many printers themselves. Just, it's kind of one of those, well, everybody has a stapler on their desk, so everybody has a printer on their desk. So with the help of their accounting department, and that was a big part of it, their accounting department helped by pulling these invoices for the ink cartridges and the requests that they were getting for people to replace the ink in their burners, Mike. And we determined that over time, they were spending over $3,000 a month on ink cartridges alone. So that's huge. That's a lot of money. And so what we did after that is we looked at their office layout, and it's a little bit of a bigger office. We looked to see what made sense. Could we replace printers? Could we remove printers? And really, we came together and we settled on what I like to call like a distributive approach. And they totally bought into, streamlining on toner-based copiers. So they only had 2 copiers before and 92 printers, but now they were looking at 8 copiers throughout the office and 8 printers. So yeah, I mean, huge difference, right? And so it was, we implemented some software that Mark was talking about, and basically any of the users could walk up to any networked print device and release their print jobs. They weren't tied to a specific device on their network anymore or on their desk. If Susie was using a copier over here, they could walk to the next department and release their print job somewhere else in the office. And it was huge. So, like Mark and Mike were talking about earlier, you get the reporting side of it on the back end, and the users just see their print jobs. Everybody loved it. But that's not what's exciting about this. So, after a year, we really get to quantify this experience for them financially. And I'll give you a little bit of background numbers. I told you they were spending over $3,000 a month on ink cartridges, but in total, between the copiers and the printers, they were probably spending close to $5,000 a month just for usage. After we implemented 8 copiers and software, their average monthly cost was like around $1,800. So, we're saving them that $3,000 that they were spending on the ink cartridges. And it feels really good to be able to give back to one of your customers. Like, here, put this money back into your organization. We made you more efficient,
Yeah.
It's huge.
That's awesome, Jill. And when you think about it, it can either just be profit, right? Or it's an opportunity for them to invest in their company to grow. And that's really the beauty of it. So, when you really look back at that, they were really in the 90%, right? Who wasn't really tracking and understanding how much they were spending on print. And I think a lot of people out there right now really fall into that area. But, with the right-sized hardware and software, you really can turn print back into profitability. So Christian, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Mike. So at this time, we'd like to offer up anyone who's joined us today a 30-day free trial for any of our print management softwares that we currently offer. And for the next 30 days, they'll be available for that 30-day trial. So it's kind of an act now scenario that we're setting up for everybody to be able to try it for free, get a taste, see if it works for you and your organization, and see if it can also save you quite a bit of money. And moving on, we'll let you know what's growing next week. Next week, we'll have Jeff Blunt, our VCIO, and Patrick Judy, our IT solution specialist, back to talk about Microsoft 365 and what that looks like and how moving the majority of your organization offsite to a cloud facility and not have to manage any of that on site and what that looks like for you all. And then a follow-up episode after that, Mike and Mark will be back to talk about how automation in accounting would work for your company and your AP processing and all that, and how AI can work for you and speed up your business processes. So now we've reached our Q&A session, and so far we haven't had any questions yet, but we'll give it a little time to see if anybody can process any questions. Mike and Mark, do you have any follow-up content that you'd like to either plug or follow up on?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I want to convey today is just, I would urge everybody out there to take advantage of that free trial. At the very least, it's going to give you visibility to what you're currently spending on print, and from that you can determine if it's the right move for you. But in our experience, it's almost always the right move to actively manage your print environment.
Gotcha. All right. So we have one question that just came in, asking if we have the ability to manage both printers and copiers from different manufacturers with, I guess, a single or a centralized piece of software.
I'll take that one, Christian.
Yeah, sure.
So there's platforms on the market today, different ones, different flavors, some better than others, but most of the platforms out there today are printer or multifunctional agnostic. So what I mean by that is these products can manage different printers and different copiers from different manufacturers. So it's very seamless that way. When we talk about copiers, there is panel integration as well. And that gets into a conversation of secure print release, follow me printing or follow you or find me printing, different different ways to describe that. But yeah, so any of these platforms out there, if you're looking for one, they should be device agnostic.
Yeah.
All right. See, we have another question that just came in. Question is asking, we don't have any on-site servers. Are there any cloud-based print management options out there for their organization?
I can
Do you
take
want
that.
Yeah,
Sure,
go
I'll
ahead.
take that. So there are several cloud-based options out there. And as we look into the future, some of the on-prem only solutions, because of the need of the market and the trend of going to the cloud, they're coming. But what we have seen are some of these solutions have limited features. So depending on what your requirements are, a cloud-based solution might be perfect for you. If you're looking for some of the advanced features, some of the integration pieces with accounting, or in a higher ed type of environment, when we're piecing together a lot of different systems, and print management just happens to be one of them. An on-prem solution might be a better fit. But to answer the question directly, there are cloud solutions out there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
And just to add to that, we would, that's kind of part of the discovery process for us. We'll ask you the right questions to get you matched up. Now, even though you don't have a server, there are things like print appliances that we can put in place that will allow us to get you up and running with the right solutions as well.
It's a really
Correct.
good point. Yeah, really good point.
And to follow up on the integrations part, there are cloud integrations like with Office 365 or Microsoft 365, what it's called now, or if your organization is on G Suite, there are some scanning and printing options to integrate into those systems as well, if anybody's looking for that. We've got a couple questions that just came in. Let me see here. The first one reads, what is the cost for the software? And I'm going to guess that's like a possible average cost.
Yeah, do you want me to grab that one, Mark?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll get the next one.
Yeah, so when it comes to the print output software, I mean, they started actually, some of the software is free. Depending on the features that you need, that may be a good fit for you. On top of that, some of the paid solutions, it really depends on how advanced it needs to be for you. Some of the device-based licenses that you would need, and that would be, depending on how many multi-function devices you have, they're in the ballpark of about $30 to $35 a month to manage those. And then from there, the configuration cost. And again, that's going to be dependent on how many devices you have and what you need from them. Now, what's great, we always have free, consultative services to kind of, figure out what you need, and we can help put that on paper so you can budget accordingly.
You kind of touched on this next question too, Mike. How long does it take to set this up?
Yeah, we have a pretty quick turnaround. On average for any of our solutions, about 2 weeks turnaround would be, I don't want to say guaranteed, but I couldn't tell you the last time for a solution like that we haven't had it up and running in 2 weeks. In most cases, it could be a few days from the time we get the license. But it really depends. Yeah.
I mean, what I'd like to add to that is, to set up the software itself, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem, it takes no time at all. I'll even tell you it takes 10 minutes to set up the software. Where the time comes in is the planning, and making sure that all the requirements are understood. I think you mentioned that prior, Mike, but after we get an understanding of all those requirements, and those requirements are some of the things we talked about in the software piece in this presentation. Are we monitoring by user, by department, by role? Are we setting up recipes or defined rules? Are we working with the soft approach or the hard approach? And after we define all those, we'll find that we have a seamless rollout. And then training comes into that equation as well. So how are we training? Is it train the trainer, or are we training each individual user, or are we having an admin training different time than an end user training? So, we take all those variables and come up with a time. But to your point, Mike, it doesn't take long to really set it up and configure. It's just really understanding what the full project scope is.
Right, it's all kind of environment dependent. All right, and we have one last question we'll get to. This one's a little lengthy. They're asking, they have 22 employees, and they would like to know if they could achieve similar results to the case that Jill brought up in terms of saving money, and can that help a smaller company that doesn't have a large amount of employees and devices?
Yeah, Mark, you mind if I grab this one?
Can I take that one?
I think Jill needs to take it.
I got
Got it.
Me. I don't think it matters how many people are in your organization. I think money saved is money saved. And, if we can give you some insight into how you're managing your print budget, it's going to be impactful on your organization. You're going to know exactly what's coming in and what's going out, who's doing what, where it's going. And you don't know until you talk to us, really, to see, to help analyze what you're doing and look for more ways. It might not just be software. It might not be just printing devices. It could be a number of things. But I think the impact on saving any money, especially in today's environment, is extremely important. Or making sure that, you're spending your money wisely.
Yeah,
For sure.
100%.
And to follow up on that, the 30-day trial would also help with that in gathering a lot of your current print information. So that's something that could be easily set up to get more groundwork and more data to go off of to see what direction we may need to go.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Please see us back here next week for the Microsoft 365 discussion. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email Mike Young or Mark Klein at cobbtechnologies.com, and we'll be seeing you next week. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.